What Pixel Castle and Ghostcrawler are doing for the MMO space is much more important than it may seem, and much, much bigger than it may seem, and it's all to do with us. If you haven't been especially tuned into the MMO space, you may have missed that fantastic Pixel Castle, the team headed up by Ghostcrawler after he left the Riot MMO, released some gameplay shots of their in-progress MMO. And these shots are rough. They are very, very rough. But they're rough on purpose. They are a prototype of the MMO. The art isn't their own, they're store-bought Unity assets, something they're very upfront about. In the grand scheme of things, this will end up being a blip on the radar, but it's also the period of development we rarely see from an MMO. Unless they're an indie MMO that needs funding, like Ashes of Creation or Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Over the last decade or so, there has kind of been, in some ways, in very small corners, a redefining of the MMORPG development cycle. It is a part of a subset within a subset of a subset of people who like games, who like MMOs, who are interested in indie MMOs that have seen this change. We get to see these games in states that they were never meant to be seen. And because that's kind of new and jarring, people have not been used to it. We have not been used to it. We are not used to seeing gray boxing or really terrible animations or placeholder UI elements. We're just not used to that. It's the kind of thing that we didn't get to see. More often than not, we're used to seeing a highly polished gameplay trailer that may or may not actually be in engine, a gameplay trailer that may or may not be using free cameras and perhaps using a lot of, maybe even some cheats in the game, like certain MMOs recently, to get the best shots. Or maybe it's companies spending untold amounts of money on cinematics instead of actual gameplay. All of the ugly phases of development are hidden. It's why I've been so appreciative of the dev videos from games like Monsters and Memories with people like Zukin of Zukin Sculpts on Twitch, who will actually stream showing what it takes to paint a 3D model of their game.
What this process is called is UV mapping. You're mapping the coordinates. So this square needs coordinates, texture coordinates. There's the 4 points, right? So it's a square. So there's the 4 points right here. What does the computer put here when you apply a texture? And there's a correlation. So the UV, it's like the skin of it, right? So these 4 points are these 4 points. This is the 3D version. This is the 2D version. So they're linked. And so whatever texture you put within this box, like it's going to load the texture at full size, but like whatever pixels are inside this box on that texture is what's going to show up here on the model. In order for stuff to look the way you want it to look, you have to, put the stuff where you want them so that it lines up. When you put a texture on, it lines the pixels on the texture with the position on the model.
So what Pixel Castle didn't do was new. Showing off these ugly parts of the game has been going on for a long time with these indie MMOs. But what makes it so special and so important is that Pixel Castle is not an MMO that is going to be requiring any funding from any backers. It is an MMO attached to a big name that will likely get a decent amount of attention as far as it continues to grow. Not just because Ghostcrawler was associated with World of Warcraft, but also because of Ghostcrawler and leaving the Riot MMO in the current state or non-state of the Riot MMO, which I'm guessing is probably in a similar state as Ghostcrawler's new MMO with Pixel Castle at this point, unfortunately. But if you notice, there's two different approaches going here, right? Riot has been upfront and said, we're going dark for a couple years. You're just not going to hear from us at all. Ghostcrawler and Pixel Castle, on the other hand, has said, we're going to be getting updates on the MMO as it progresses. You don't have to follow along if you don't want to. It's just more for the people like myself who are interested in seeing the development, seeing the pieces come together. And for an MMO that is, beholden to a publisher, that's different. Doing something like this opens up your game to criticism, lots of criticism. There is the often repeated adage of you only get like one first impression. If this is your first impression of me, fuck, hi, I cuss sometimes, sorry. But this is what they're doing. They're showing this first impression. And, you know, to be completely fair, for a first impression, what Pixel Castle did was they put it on their website. And they didn't put it on their YouTube. They didn't put it anywhere else. It is not exactly a marketing blitz showing off all of the things that they are currently working on, all of the art that they're working on. So it's more along the lines of, you have to go find it if you want to. In fact, I haven't seen it covered that much by a lot of the different outlets out there yet, although I'm sure they will. And this all, to me, goes back to one of the things they state as a studio value that they highlight in their first letter: partner with players. Boy, did they show it off at a stage that is incredibly basic. Placeholder models, placeholder environment, placeholder UI, but with the basic functions of their classes. That is, their classes of sword and fireball. They were able to gain experience, fight a boss, and die to the boss, and, well, respawn. But it wasn't just those rudimentary game structures they were getting in the game. At the same time, over these last couple months, they were also starting to build the world of the game, something they also talked about. They worked on the narrative and the world history with heavy use of concept art and one central question that I found fascinating because it shows where building a game would differ from other media like movies and books. The question Fantastic Pixel Castle asked was, what world would best support our gameplay? With the question of what comes first, the gameplay or the story, it looks like Pixel Castle has their answer. I say this is also important, and I wanted to even do a video about it because it's not that much news, right? It's just a short little letter from Pixel Castle. But the reason why I thought this was worthy of a video was because there is this misunderstanding, I think, a lot of times, and I'm guilty of it. I still have constant misunderstandings of just how complex game development is. And the closer I get to it, the more people I talk to that actually know what the hell they're talking about, unlike myself, the more I get to learn just how much goes into it and how much goes into an MMO, how much stuff there is to do, whether it's an indie MMO or a AAA MMO. There are a lot of challenges that happen, and learning about how things go in the prototype is something I've really appreciated. Things like the podcast from Ghostcrawler have been enlightening in a lot of ways, but also with Monsters and Memories, with how open they've been talking about their development process and things like that. It's been helpful to see and learn a lot of the things that go on that we never really got to see before. Whatever happens to this MMO, cheers to the team at Fantastic Pixel Castle because they didn't have to show us this. They chose to be more open with their development, and my hope is that with people getting to see this, they'll get to see that game development, like every single piece of art, has an ugly face. And perhaps, just perhaps, we can be a little bit more patient with game developers and see them as just a little bit more human than we currently do. Now, if you're interested in following along more with Pixel Castle's MMO, I covered that more in this video right here, where I delved into some of the things that have been revealed about the game, some of the gameplay mechanics and styles, as well as some concept art, and then also my biggest concern about the game that no amount of transparency is unfortunately going to be able to assuage, and it's all to do with their publisher. So you can check that video out right there. My name is Trevor Flynn. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.